Paul Feiger. I'm a recent transplant from California. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, consulting hypnotist if I want to keep with the titles. I'm a certified instructor through NGH, and I have a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. So a lot of stuff to hang on me. But my passion is hypnosis, and my passion is what we're going to talk about tonight, guided imagery and imagery and hypnosis. One of the most powerful tools that anyone could ever use in our business is imagery. We're going to do, hopefully we'll do some inductions tonight. I want to talk to you a little bit about it. So let me tell you a story first. Just close your eyes for a second for me. And just listen, because I have to read it. I haven't memorized it like I used to have it. So, standing on the wall were 3 jugs that carried water. And one of the empty water jugs felt very determined. And unlike his brother water jugs, he had a crack in his side. He knew that when he and the other water jugs were taken down to the river to get water for the family, he would return only half full. He was very determined to find out how he could be of better service because he didn't know how to stop the water from leaking. And he wanted to be a bigger help to the very nice lady that fetched water every single day. So one day, on the way back from the river, he spoke up to the lady who carried the water. He said that he knew that he couldn't carry his share of the water because of his cracked side, and therefore made the lady take more trips than was really necessary, and he was very determined to do better. The lady looked down on the little cracked jug with a warm smile on her face and said, "Oh, did you ever notice the flowers along the side of the road?" "No," he said, he didn't. And that's the whole, open your eyes, that's the whole thing we're doing here about imagery. Did you see that jug? Mm-hmm. Did you see the road? Did you see the lady? Some of you stopped seeing early. Some of you were still seeing when I interrupted you. And that's the beauty of all that goes on internally. One of the most beautiful things about hypnosis, for those of you who are just starting, and those that have been in business for since the beginning of time, is that it works no matter what if you use imagery. And we're going to talk about that tonight. So if you'll open your book just a little bit to page 1, actually slide 1, after the introduction, I'd like to talk to you just a little bit about why you should care about guided imagery. Why should you care about it? Guided imagery provides a powerful tool which almost guarantees certain success. Let me tell you a little story. A client came to me and he said, "Paul, I'm having trouble with my wife," and she said, "I need to come to you and talk to you about how can I get myself fixed." I said, "Well, do you think you're broken?" He said, "No, I don't." I said, "Well," so we started talking. And one of the intake forms that I use gave me an ingress into asking him questions about his life. I said, "Well, let me ask you this." I'll call him Jim. I said, "Jim, do you feel anxious?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I do." I said, "Well, what do you feel anxious about?" One of the most important things for all of us to know is when you're dealing with clients, the very first thing you need to know is you need to know your client. You need to know your client. We'll talk more about that shortly. So Jim told me that he was anxious because he'd recently been, and he was a police officer, recently been in a shootout, and he felt traumatized. And I asked him if he told anybody, and he said no, he hadn't told anybody. Hadn't told a soul. So one thing led to another, and I asked him, I said, "Jim, would you like to get rid of some of that anxiety?" He said, "I would love to get rid of the anxiety." So, do any of you feel any stress tonight from any of your daily jobs or anything? Can you see anybody stressed at all? Nobody? No? You had anybody have any anxieties over, don't tell me what there are, any anxieties of any kind? No? So everybody's living this life of, oh, it's unbelievable. Anyway, so here's what I did with them. I said, Jim, close your eyes and let's visualize what that anxiety looks like outside of your body. Because remember, folks, when you're doing hypnosis, you're talking to the inner person, the essence of the individual, who really makes the decisions, who controls everything. So when we looked at the anxiety from out, I had them externalize. We call externalize it. And I used some modalities in NLP people. Where are the NLP people here? Who's my NLP people? Okay. So we used it in some modalities with him, and here's what I did. I said, look at your anxiety. What does it look like? And he told me what it looked like. I said, well, and how does it taste? And how does it smell? How does it feel? Okay. Is it big? Is it little? Okay. Go inside of it and see what it's like inside. Come out. And then I had to make it bigger. He got more anxious. I had to make it slower. Because one of the things that you can utilize when you're working with imagery is your client gets in control. And we'll talk about that in a moment, about why they're there to see you in the first place. And so he made it bigger and he made it smaller. I had to make it just as small as a period at the end of a sentence in a book. And then I made him put it up in the sky and disappear. And so how do you feel afterwards? I feel pretty good. So after he came and saw me the following week, he told me this. Before he had left, he was going to quit the police force and find another job because he couldn't do the business anymore. Okay? He came back a week later just from that. And we did hypnosis, which I'll follow up in a minute. And he said he's not quitting the force. He loves the force. He didn't feel the anxiety. He felt a little bit left, a little anxiety left. So remember Claire's presentation last week? How many of you, or last month? Whoever was here last month. And she did the movie theater. Okay. Well, I utilized that particular scenario. It wasn't word for word, but it was that scenario. I had to witness the event that he was traumatized and release the negative emotions. Now, he was in hypnosis when we did this. So the images of all of these things, including his emotions that were released, finally, when I saw him for the very last time before I came to Northern Carolina, North Carolina, he said he had no anxiety anymore, and he and his wife were reconciling. Because the event had taken place 3 years before he came to see me. He hadn't told anybody for 3 years. So, Guided Imagery provides a powerful tool which almost guarantees client success. They can't fail. How many of you that have been in the business any length of time or even brand new have experienced resistance from a client? Okay? How many people have experienced, I don't want to do this, so you work whatever induction methodology you use, they just pluck their eyes open. No, it ain't working for me. Okay? Well, when you use guided imagery, there is no resistance. And the reason there is no resistance is it all comes from within them. You don't bring anything, you bring that out of them, and they don't fear themselves and their ideas as much as they do you. So, number 2, guided imagery has been successfully used since the beginning of humanity heal. You were with some shamans down there in Florida? Did they use that kind of stuff? Absolutely, imagery like crazy.
We not in the Muay, but we do use it.
All around the world there are images. I just had dinner at an Indian restaurant right over up the street on Davis. Okay? And they had an Indian movie playing on the screen. And the images there were of the gods and the heroes and all the mythological stuff that we do. Well, that's all the stuff that's still in us. And people see that. So imagery heals. I just healed that man. I'm going to tell you another story later about another person who was healed from grief using imagery. Guided imagery lets the client be in control of the process and lowers the fear. One of the biggest things I discovered, I've been in the business since 2004. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you the other stuff. I have an office in Durham, and I've been in the business in 2004. My wife got me into the business, okay? And she'll tell you the story if you want to. But the bottom line is that one of the biggest things is that when people come to see you as a hypnotist, I could just about put money on the table that you're the last one on the line that God to see.
Amen. Amen, Brother Boo. She said it loud.
You are it. And they're scared to death because they've heard all about how you can control them, make them do weird things, and just all this stuff. They're scared to death, but with imagery, all that fear disappears because they are in control. I'm not gonna do anything to you, Paige. We're just gonna talk about your imagination. Remember when you were a kid, you imagined things, and she got a smile on her face already. Okay, people love that stuff. And using imagery bypasses all that fear. It isn't there. Because you're not doing anything to me, well, I'm doing it for myself. That's what it's all about. And guided imagery easily bypasses the unconscious reluctance for change. One of the most people in psychology, and you also know just from common experience, that no one wants to change. How many stories have you ever heard of someone dying of lung cancer and their last request is to have a cigarette? Okay? You don't want to change. Nobody wants to change or fear of change. And let me give you my take on the reason, because it's important when you do guided imagery and hypnosis that you have an understanding of who you're dealing with. The reason people are afraid of change is because everything that they are today, when you see them, is the sum total of all the decisions they've made to survive. And when you say, well, change that, they go, wait a minute, I may not survive. And even if they're doing things that they come to you to change, they're afraid to change it because it may endanger them. Guided imagery bypasses all that. You don't even need, it's not even as even enter into the picture. Also, the unconscious mind. Listen and see if you may agree or not agree, but it's something to consider. The unconscious mind is like a 7-year-old. Any of you have ever dealt with 7-year-olds? They want to please you. They want to do everything that you want them to do. Okay? But they'll follow totally without question. And this one's a really smart one. And anything you tell the 7-year-old they'll do. And throughout yours and your clients' lives, you've made decisions. Sometimes they're called limiting decisions. You've made decisions that your unconscious mind carries out. How many of you have ever tried to lose weight? And you just didn't. And you couldn't. No matter what you did, you couldn't lose weight. There's a reason for that. It has nothing to do with your conscious mind, your unconscious mind. You made a decision a long time ago that having excess weight benefited you, protected you in some way. It made you safe. And your unconscious mind will do anything not to change that. So when I call you, Alt, and I say, it's time for you to lose weight, and you come to me and you say, yeah, I want to lose weight, and I say, let's lose weight, you're in a mindset, I'm not losing any weight. You can talk all you want, I'm not doing it. Because it benefits me, and it benefits Alt. So when you bypass it, you're not challenging anybody, are you? And we'll see that later. I have a couple of inductions I'd like to do for you later. Okay, turn to the next page, please. I'm going to ask you, by the way, if there's any questions or comments pop into your mind, I want to hear them, but can you wait for me to finish? Okay. Why does it work? The client has a deep fear of change. We just talked about that. No matter the rapport that you build with your client, this page 3. No matter the rapport that you build with your client, it makes no difference. They're still afraid. In psychology, they call that ambivalence. They want that change, but they're afraid to change. They want that change, they're afraid to change. So the reason that you're afraid to change anytime is you may be afraid of the unknown. What happens if I